For nearly 3,000 years, the speed of human life was effectively frozen. Whether you were an emperor in Rome or a farmer in 1860s Michigan, your world was defined by a single immovable variable, the caloric limit of a horse. This wasn't a choice, it was a biological ceiling. Henry Ford's real contribution wasn't the car, it was the systematic destruction of that ceiling. Born in 1863, Ford viewed the traditional farm not as a pastoral ideal, but as a site of profound kinetic waste. He observed that a horse was a deeply inefficient engine. It consumed fuel and required land even when it was standing still. His career was a lifelong attempt to divorce human productivity from the limits of the muscle. The blueprint for the 20th century was found inside the gears of a pocket watch. As a teenager, Ford noticed something that would become the foundation of modern life: standardization. He observed that if a watch were manufactured to a high enough precision, its parts became interchangeable. In the 1880s, this was radical. Most machines were bespoke. If a gear broke on your plow, a specialist had to hand file a new one just to fit that specific machine. Technology was expensive because it was unique. Ford hypothesized that quality shouldn't be a byproduct of a craftsman's soul. It should be a mathematical certainty of the machine tool. This obsession with the thousandth of an inch tolerance created a world where success was determined by microscopic accuracy. Ford's early career was a string of failures. His first two companies collapsed because of a fundamental disagreement over the intent of technology. His investors wanted a luxury good, a high-margin toy for the wealthy. Ford, however, was focused on the unserved market. This led to a pivotal split. After Ford walked away from his second company, it was rebranded as Cadillac, focusing on prestige. Ford went the other way. He realized that in the new industrial economy, volume was its own form of capital. He began a brutal process of elimination, stripping away every part of the car that wasn't strictly necessary for motion. In 1908, the Model T arrived. It succeeded because of a specific technical gamble: vanadium steel. American roads were so poor that an affordable, lightweight car would simply snap under the stress. Ford found a French racing alloy that was both lighter and stronger than anything made in the US. He didn't just buy the steel, he built the infrastructure to manufacture it. This material choice allowed the Model T to survive conditions that would swallow a luxury Cadillac. By removing the skill barrier of gear shifting with a planetary transmission, Ford didn't just create a car. He created a customer base out of people who had never touched a machine in their lives. The most famous shift in industrial history happened in 1913 at the Highland Park plant. Before this, assembly was stationary. Inspired by the disassembly lines of meatpacking plants, Ford inverted the logic. He moved the car to the man. The data is staggering. Before the moving line, it took 12 hours and 8 minutes to build a chassis. After the line, it took 93 minutes. This was the commodification of the second. Ford's engineers analyzed every hand movement. If a worker had to bend down for a bolt, that was waste. By 1925, Ford was producing a car every 5 seconds. He had successfully synchronized the human body to the rhythm of the machine. But the assembly line created a crisis. The work was so repetitive that Ford's turnover rate hit 370%. He had to hire 52,000 men a year just to maintain a workforce of 14,000. His solution was the $5 day. It wasn't charity, it was an efficiency wage. By doubling the pay, he stabilized his workforce and, more importantly, he created consumer citizens. If the people building the cars couldn't afford to buy them, the system would eventually collapse under its own supply. The $5 day came with a condition: the Sociological department. To qualify for the wage, investigators visited workers' homes to monitor their financial savings, home cleanliness, and moral conduct. In Ford's system, the worker was an interchangeable part. For the factory to run with mechanical precision, the human element had to be as uniform as the steel. By the 1920s, Ford built the River Rouge complex, the largest integrated factory on Earth. His goal was vertical integration. He didn't want to rely on the chaos of the market. At the Rouge, Ford owned the timber stands and the rubber plantations. Raw materials arrived at the docks on Monday. By Tuesday afternoon, they had been smelted, cast, and driven off the line as a finished car. He had created a closed system, shielded from the unpredictability of the outside world. However, Ford's obsession with control eventually hit a wall. In the late 1920s, he attempted to bypass the British rubber monopoly by building a Midwestern American city in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. It was called Fordlandia. He didn't just build a rubber plantation, he built a carbon copy of a Michigan suburb in the jungle. He enforced American diets and mandated square dancing for the local Brazilian workers. The project was a catastrophic failure. The rubber trees, planted in tight, standardized rows, were wiped out by blight. Fordlandia proved that while machines can be standardized, nature and culture cannot. It remains a ghost town today. As Ford's drive for standardization reached its peak, it extended into the social sphere with documented, consequential results. From 1919 to 1927, Ford used his newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, to disseminate a series of virulent anti-Semitic articles, later compiled as The International Jew. These writings framed Jewish people as a disruptive force in the industrial order Ford had built. This campaign is a documented fact of Ford's career and had significant international impact. Historical records show these writings were widely distributed in Germany and cited as an inspiration by the leadership of the Nazi regime. In 1938, the German government awarded Ford the Grand Cross of the German Eagle. This illustrates a paradox. The same mindset that prioritized the elimination of industrial friction was applied to the dehumanization of a global population. By the late 1920s, Ford's refusal to change became his liability. Consumers wanted status and style. General Motors introduced different colors. Ford famously resisted, stating you could have any color so long as it is black. Not for style, but because black paint dried the fastest on the assembly line. He had built a system so perfectly optimized for one product that it could no longer evolve. When he finally retooled for the Model A in 1927, he had to shut down his empire for 6 months. The machine had become too specialized to survive a change in the environment. Henry Ford died in 1947, but the Fordist model is still the skeleton of our world. We see it in just-in-time supply chains and cities designed for cars rather than people. Ford's career proves that the transition from biological to mechanical limits was a sociological achievement as much as a technical one. He showed that scale could be achieved through the synchronization of materials, time, and human behavior.